the local campaign, and thank you for joining us for this debate in the riding of Nepean. We're going to introduce the candidates who are here for the debate in just a moment. I'll go over the rules for today's debate. Each candidate will receive 60 seconds for an opening statement to speak directly to you, the voters in Nepean. And the order for those opening statements was drawn at random just a few minutes ago. Then we'll move into a series of debates about the important topics in the riding, across the city, and throughout Canada. I'll ask a question to start each debate. I'll direct that specifically to one candidate. That candidate will have 60 seconds to answer the question on his own, and then we'll open it up to all the candidates for a free-flowing debate on that subject. We'll move through a number of different topics that way, and then we'll wrap up with closing statements, again 1 minute in length, and those will be in the reverse order of the opening statements. So let's meet the candidates who are running in the riding of Nepean. First, the Liberal candidate, Chandra Arya. An independent candidate, Harry Splett. Representing the Green Party, Jean-Luc Cooke.
Hello.
Sean Devine is the NDP candidate. The Conservative candidate, Andy Wang.
Hi.
The Marxist-Leninist candidate, Tony Seed. And an independent candidate, Jesus Cosico. Welcome to all of you. Thank you for joining us for the debate. There is one other candidate on the ballot, Hubert Mamba, an independent candidate who was not able to attend the debate today. So let's begin with the opening statements, and we'll go in exactly the order we just introduced the candidates to you in, and we'll start with Chandra Arya, the Liberal candidate. Go ahead, you have 1 minute.
Hello, I'm Chandra Arya. I'm running to be your Liberal Member of Parliament for the riding of Nepean. I want to use my experience as a business person and a community activist to give a very strong voice to Nepean in the Parliament. I want to demonstrate to our children and grandchildren that politics is above partisanship, is about public service, and it is about giving back to the society, that it is about working together. I want to work hand in hand with the people of all backgrounds and all political viewpoints to find solutions to the problems we face. I've been very actively involved in the community. I was in the high-tech sector before I entered politics last year, and I have worked on the board of Invest Ottawa, the economic development agency of the city of Ottawa. I have worked on the board of Cosico, not-for-profit housing corporation. I know the issues we face. I know the solution can be found if we all join hands and work together. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Next up, the opening statement from independent candidate Harry Splett. Go ahead, you have 60 seconds.
Voters of Nepean, the federal government is broke, i.e. heavily in debt to the tune of nearly $1 trillion. The annual interest payment alone, mainly to the banks, is a whopping $26 billion. Thus, there is very little left over to provide goods and services. We need to start paying down the mortgage, and I propose we do it over a 10-year period using the Central Bank of Canada at no cost to the taxpayers. 2, within an improved debt-paying system, we can afford to end the Martin Liberal clawback of old age pensions, stop effluent from polluting the Ottawa River, forgive student education loans until they can start paying taxes, afford to build bridges and repair roads and sewers, etc. To do this, we must phase out the political parties. They've outlived their usefulness, and replace them in Parliament with independent members who will answer directly to the people.
Okay,
thank you.
Next up is the Green Party candidate, Jean-Luc Cooke. Go ahead.
Hello, my name is Jean-Luc Cooke, and I am the Green Party candidate for the riding of Nepean. This is my second election. I ran in 2011. And for the last 5 years, I've been the small business critic for the Green Party, helping advance their small business party platform. Over that time, I have been very proud of the changes I've made to the Green Party platform, specifically with small business and entrepreneurship. And I feel the Green Party right now is the best party for small business. I want to see capital gains get reinvested into new small businesses. This deferral of taxes helps encourage a core set of angels or dragons, however you want to call it these days. These are initial seed investors because we want to get successful investors back in the game and continuing to reinvest into new small business. This is what's going to bring high tech back and encourage new small business that employs half the country. I was growing up here in Nepean. I went to school here. I raised my family here. I work here. Please represent me by voting for me on October 19th.
Okay, thank you. Next up is the NDP candidate, Sean Devine. Go ahead, you've got 1 minute.
Hello, my name is Sean Devine, and I'm running for the NDP in this election because what I think this community needs and what I think this country needs is a progressive government that can bring about the change that we're all looking for after 10 years of seeing this country turn into something that was not meant to be. Here in Nepean, we need to build an economy that serves the middle class. We need to take much better care of our public service. We need to look after our seniors, we need to create more youth employment, and we need to create tangible opportunities for a growing number of new Canadians. And we need to invest much better in our healthcare system. I believe that I'm the best candidate for Nepean because of the man that I am and because of the work I did before politics in the nonprofit sector. I'm a married man with 3 kids, and I come from very humble working class roots. I'm the executive director of a successful nonprofit organization dedicated to community service. I'm a passionate fighter, I'm a community leader, and I believe that integrity in government is very important, and I think that makes for a good member of parliament. Thank you.
Thank you. Andy Wang is the Conservative candidate in Nepean. He's up next with his opening statement.
Hi, my name is Andy Wang. I'm running to become your Conservative Member of Parliament for Nepean. Nepean is where I grew up and where I live today. For me, I'm very privileged to be part of this community in a country where all of us are free to pursue our own dreams, to create our own story. I arrived in Canada when I was only 9 years old, didn't speak a word of English. I was raised not on expectations of handouts, instead to look for opportunities to work hard. That's what prompted me to start my own business in website designing. For me, it is clear that small businesses and entrepreneurs are the engine behind Canada's prosperity. That is why I'm committed to a low tax plan, which will create more jobs in Nepean, and want to continue to lower taxes for families, seniors, veterans, and job creators. This is the Conservative approach. This is my approach, and this is what I'll represent for Nepean on Parliament Hill. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up is the Marxist-Leninist candidate, Tony Seed. Go ahead.
No need to introduce myself. I am very proud and honored to represent the program of the Marxist-Leninist Party in this federal election. This is a program represented across Canada by some 70 people who are working people, youth, women, students. We are candidates of thought and action who turn our words into deeds. I've been an activist since my days at Carleton University in the 1960s. I transform. I stand for what I say. Our program is based on the major elements of a new direction for the economy, democratic renewal of the political process, a modern constitution, and establishing an anti-war government.
All right, thank you. Finally, we have the opening statement from independent candidate Jesus Cosico. Go ahead.
Greetings to my constituents in Nepean. I am Jesus Cosico. As an independent candidate by choice, I will not be beholden to any political party. My overriding goal is to dedicate myself to the citizens of Nepean. I bring to you a strong belief that more than ever, Canada needs independent voices in Parliament, willing and able to bring forth new ideas and courage to fight for them. Contrary to most beliefs, the independent voice is stronger than any partisan voice. In no instance will independent voice be silenced by any party or its leader. Like many residents in Nepean, I too belong to the middle class. I feel the same anxieties brought about by financial and social concerns. I am also a federal employee and share the same sentiments and negatives impressed upon us. As your independent representative, you're guaranteed that your voice will always be heard. I'll end with this quote from Albert Einstein: "The world will not be destroyed by those who do evil, but by those who watch them without doing anything." Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Thank you to all the candidates for your opening statements. Let's move into the debate portion of our telecast, and we'll start with a question to the Liberal candidate, Chandra Arya. You made reference to the fact that you're a business person, and I wanted to talk about the Liberal fiscal plan and have some discussion about government finances. Is it responsible, from your perspective as a business person, to add more debt and interest costs by borrowing money, running deficits over the first 3 years of a Liberal government?
Absolutely. As a business person, I really love the fact that we are investing. I know the interest rates are low. The debt to GDP is low. The people in the oil and gas sector, the skilled people, are losing their jobs. This is the time to invest in the economy. We need the economy to grow. Once the growth takes place, the revenue flows in much bigger way. And this is the plan. We are going to invest about $125 billion in the infrastructure, including about $20 billion on the transit plan, about $20 billion in the social infrastructure, taking care of the senior care facilities, the child care facilities, the affordable housing, and about $20 billion in the green sector. We believe the environment and economy are not separate, but they can go hand in hand.
Okay, we'll open it up to everyone now. I'll remind you to be respectful to each other, but feel free to jump in whenever you see an opening and go ahead and speak.
How do you get the order of speaking? Just put your hand up.
No, you just go ahead and speak. Go ahead.
All I hear right now is the Liberal Party of Canada, Justin Trudeau, talking about spending, 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 but who is paying these bills? How are taxpayers supposed to afford a government that is constantly spending billions of dollars without consulting, without actually asking Canadians what are the priorities?
I've been asking that for the last 4 years.
It's an interesting question, because what Andy says is that he sees the Liberal proposition as spending, spending, spending without consulting.
That's exactly what Kathleen Wynne has been doing here in Ontario, what the previous Liberal government here in Ontario has doing. They're destroying our economy. They're destroying jobs. And right now we have elementary school teachers who are going on rotations of striking. That's the result of mismanagement of the economy. Our Conservative government has a strong record of managing the economy with the creation of 1.3 million new jobs since the recession. This is a strong record.
1.3 million new jobs you're talking about are all low-paying jobs.
That is untrue.
They are in the retail sector.
90% of these jobs, 90% of these jobs are full-time.
That are needed.
A majority of these jobs are high-paying sectors.
Okay, one at a time, please.
The export sector pays 50% more than the comparable jobs, and we have got the trade deficit during the last 10 years.
High taxes,
we have the worst
high spending,
trade deficit since World War II.
All I'm hearing from the Liberal Party again, so they're spending more, they're not going to be able to pay these bills.
The sector is down, and there's a good reason for it. His name is Barack Obama, holding up the oil line to the United States. That's killing the Alberta economy, which is the engine of the Canadian economy. So, Obama should be taken out of office.
I think we should be talking about Canadian politics, Mark.
Hey,
and
that affects us very directly.
I agree, but there's a specific question that has been asked.
He should be impeached.
I agree. No, I don't agree. But there was a specific question that was asked, and the question was, about the Liberal spending plan. And I do want to reference the fact that, Mr. Wang has said that the Liberal plan is going to spend, spend, spend without consulting Canadians. It's not as if the Conservative agenda doesn't spend money. It's not as if the Conservative agenda does not raise taxes for programs.
We have done so with lower taxes.
May I finish? The Conservative government does have an agenda that doesn't always consult Canadians. They spend money. All governments spend money. I think the interesting thing, the question that has been asked is, to the Liberal candidate, do we need to advance a budget? Do we need to advance a social program that does have to incur a deficit? And from the NDP's point of view, the answer to that is no. In the 1960s, the NDP brought about the most ambitious, the boldest, one of the most valuable and cherished social programs, Medicare, without incurring a deficit. We have proven that we can advance a social agenda and not have a deficit. Do we need to incur deficit spending? I will let you get to this in a second. Do we need to incur a deficit as if we were back in the 2008 financial crisis? This is not the 2008 financial crisis. We are not in the same position. I believe we can advance a social agenda and not put a massive debt on the shoulders of the next generation, a debt that was created over the past 10 years of Stephen Harper.
Mr. Devine,
yes,
you
Mr.
are
Arya.
starting off with Mr. Harper's books. You're accepting all the things he has done, all the cuts he has done, all the austerity measures he has taken as the starting point. And you want balancing the books as same as Mr. Harper.
But you're taking Mr. Harper's budget and you're saying let's add another $9 billion of deficit.
You are going in the same Harper way of being things done. We are proposing a radically different way
Yes,
of doing
Radically
things.
different by spending. That's all I hear from the Liberal Party.
All right, everyone, Economics 101. When there is a recession, Keynesian economics says you spend into a recession. And when there are good times, you reap in the revenue at this point in time. Unfortunately, the Harper economics are the opposite. Prior to 2008, they lowered tax rate, and then the financial crisis hit, and we had fewer tools at our disposal to stimulate the economy. GST had been dropped down, taxes had been dropped down, and we're in it again. Oil has dropped down. We put all our eggs into oil, and now we no longer have the fiscal stimulus to kickstart the economy in the areas that we want. So frankly, a moderate amount of debt is achievable, and I believe we should keep it within the rate of inflation.
They stimulate it by cutting the sales tax by 5%.
Ask a question about all this, and yeah, these political parties have, I'm sure, have their good points in whatever they're presenting, right? I'm pretty sure about that. But the only problem, I think, is would you be able to come up with something that you can all decide by yourselves, among yourselves, for the good of the people?
That's an entirely question. That's an entirely different question.
No, I mean, but because I believe each and every party will have their good points about what they're proposing.
Of course.
But one of the things is, do you think that with certainty your efforts or your plans will work, considering the international, the internal and the external components that come into play?
Well, we can look at some facts.
Yeah.
Our country, the Canadian government, the Canadian economy, we're the fastest to recover from the recession after the 2008-2009 recession out of any country in the G7. This was because of our low tax plan. And yes, we have cut the GST by 2 percentage points. This was something the previous Liberal government promised for many years and have not touched it one bit. What the Liberal Party did in the previous decade was to cut public service to pay for their high-spending, wasteful spending plans.
It was actually Mulroney's debt that he paid for.
Our government has made sure taxes stay low and create more jobs, 1.3 million to be exact.
In Nepean, we have a substantial number of public service employees who are so angry with your government for the cuts you have made. The morale of the public service employees is quite low. A lot of my friends, they are very highly qualified people. They work for the federal government. They work hard. And today, they are all demoralized.
Well,
we want to bring respect back to public
question.
service.
It's interesting that
we have back to the debt.
Excuse me,
Okay.
you guys have had 4 minutes. No. This is a red herring.
Next question.
Harper ran deficits through almost every year of his government. This is
Including
so
the good years.
red herring.
It's now been
The
back.
issue is, central issue is, what is the direction for the economy? The issue is to restrict private right, to restrict the government from wrecking what exists in terms of manufacturing, agriculture, and so forth. Where was the Harper government when the steel industry was created in Ontario and Quebec? There's not a single Canadian-owned steel company left. Where were the Liberals when 40,000 fishermen from Newfoundland were thrown out and had to go to Alberta and other places for jobs? Where was the government when we have the privatization of Canada Post? All right?
Okay.
Next question.
We're going to stop there, but we're going to go back to Chandra Arya. I asked you the question originally, so you got 30 seconds to wrap up on this topic.
As I mentioned, this is the time to invest. We are in recession. Oil and gas sector, people, the skilled workers there are losing jobs. The interest rates are lower. The debt to GDP is lower. And this is the time to invest to grow the economy. That is what we are proposing to do. we are going to invest in the transit, we are going to invest in the social infrastructure, and we are going to invest in the green infrastructure.
Okay, thank you. Let's move on to the next question, which I'll direct to Harry Splett. You're an independent candidate. There are a couple of independent candidates here. I want to talk about the role of members of parliament, and when we get into the debate, you can all offer your thoughts on this topic. There is a sense that the role of the individual MP has been diminished over the last few years. Perhaps that has to do with the current government or the last two governments. But what would you do to make sure that the interests of Nepean were represented on Parliament Hill as opposed to the interests of Parliament Hill being represented to Nepean?
Now, first of all, not being part of a political party and have to cow down to the whip and the leader, that's extremely important. I work towards getting a complete parliament of independent candidates like it used to be in the early days before political parties filed up. That is our basic system. You're supposed to elect a member, and the members are supposed to elect the chair. They should also elect they can also elect the prime minister. They can do anything if they work together, but they can't work together if they're tied to an outdated, proven, failed policies, which we've had time and time again. Successive governments has increased the debt. The Trudeau government escalated astronomically by building a socialist utopia here with an oil company buying out the airlines, you name it.
Okay.
Rich man's social.
It's open to everyone now on the role of the members of Parliament.
The question you asked was about the role of members of Parliament. And my grandfather was a provincial member of Parliament in days long gone by. And I do think it is sad, it is frustrating, and it is somewhat of a national tragedy how the role of the member of Parliament has diminished. And Mark, you mentioned that perhaps that role has diminished with the last government, but you also said perhaps it has diminished over the last two governments. And we have absolutely seen an increase in the power and control from the Prime Minister's office, not just since Mr. Harper took over, but since Pierre Trudeau's government as well. And I think what we need to see in our system is members of Parliament who actually represent their constituencies, who act independently by their own consciences, listening to their party and listening to their members. And I do think it is a tragedy that we have seen. I'm very, very grateful that Andy Wang is here at this debate. But as a member of, as a prospective member of Parliament who wants to represent his riding, I find it tragic that he chose not to attend the meetings with the mayor because he was too busy.
I find it tragic
and he has
that
decided,
I'm door knocking.
I'll be done in 10 seconds. And he has decided not to attend 3 future debates where he could sit there and listen to his constituents. And he says it's because he's door knocking. From what I know, Andy has already knocked on every door in Nepean.
Well,
and now he's knocking on doors a second time.
In 1997, to seek a better future here in Canada. We share that story with millions of Canadians here. We are seeking a better future here in Canada, a country which is the envy of the world, where we represent Canadian values of democracy, freedom, and the rule of law. That is why I am seeking election this year as a Conservative member of Parliament, because I believe in these values, and I would help defend these values both abroad and here at home. That's why my team and I have knocked on over 50,000 doors, meeting as many constituents as I can. Just yesterday, I met a gentle lady who said for 35 years she has not met a single candidate waiting her at her door. This is real representation. This is real representation when I have a chance to meet candidates at the door. That's what we need to make sure
to change the way the members of Parliament are get today. Just 20
voters have to make a choice of who they think represents their voice.
Thank you, Mark. May I present
only 24% of Canadian voters can elect a government today. Typically, out of 100 voters, say 60% vote, and 40% of the 60%, 24% can elect a government. And we have proposed this will be the last election under the current system of electing the member of Parliament. We are proposing the alternate method. We will be legislating within 18 months of getting into power, an alternate, a better method where every single vote counts.
I think it's important for all voters to know exactly what that method is, and I would like to hear you say specifically what that method would be.
See, there are several methods which may or may not be suitable for Canadian country. It can be proportional, it can be a ranked ballot, it can be mandatory voting. We are going to study all possible alternative methods which have been working in various parts of the world and select the best one that is suited for Canadians, and we are going to present it.
What we need more in democracy is the opportunity for residents to directly interact with their future representatives.
And speaking
that is why I've been door knocking relentlessly here in the riding since February of this year. Over 50,000 doors.
Okay, go ahead.
Thank you. So what Andy has just said is that he upholds the value of democracy and that voters have a chance to interact with their representatives, and he has
right at their doors. Right at their doors.
Now, Andy, I've heard from your publicity that you have knocked on every door in Nepean, and now you are going around for your second round of door knocking. So you've spoken to them, and now you're speaking to them again. But what you have...
people who weren't home the last time I was
listen
around.
To you. Now, please listen to me.
I'm just answering your questions that you posed.
But what you have chosen not to do, you have chosen to attend this debate, which is fantastic. There's no public audience, but you have chosen deliberately.
The public audience is behind the camera.
There are three more debates. One second, sir. There are three more debates coming up. There's a debate in Bells Corners. There's a debate at a mosque in Nepean, in Barhaven. You have chosen.
We've already had another debate that's in public. That was held 2 weeks ago.
We are all going to be attending. And I know you're taking criticism for this. We are all going to be attending this debate. Why are you not going to those debates?
I'm right
here.
Why
don't you two guys settle it out?
If any constituents have any questions, again, I'm always available to meet them.
Jesus Cosico, you've been trying to get in for some time, so go ahead.
You guys, you've been invited to all these debates. I wish I was one of the first that was confirmed by Elections Canada, and it's sad that I haven't been invited to the first debate at Cedar View, and I think there's one that's coming up, and I didn't get an invitation. Yeah, so I really, you guys are lucky. You can get, but my point being is I agree with Mr. Sleep.
Mr. Chairman, I move that the question...
I'm sorry, please don't interrupt.
Okay. Go. I agree that there's something wrong with how the political process is happening. What Canada has right now is a process that starts from the top to the bottom. Growing up, I knew democracy starts from the grassroots. We decide, we talk, and we bring it up for legislation, then the Supreme Court validates it. But that is not what's happening right now. Maybe we have all good intentions in this for our beloved country. Why can't we just sit down and just talk about forget the political parties?
I'd like to develop this. How will the Member of Parliament represent Nepean, and how will Nepean speak to and be represented through that Member of Parliament? By opening your door? By interacting with the salesman who comes there? No. The issue is the candidates of the parties, with all due respect, are nominated by the parties. They're not selected by the electors of Nepean.
Actually,
they are. The nomination process, Liberal Party had the best open nomination process. I was never in politics before I entered because
you actually brought the candidate in
you have just confirmed what I said. You have to join the Conservative Party.
Jean-Luc Cooke, you're next.
Yes, thank you. I've let these people talk back and forth, but the truth is I am part of a major national party, and I've had my leader's blessing in private in front of the national media to put my riding's constituents' interests ahead of party policy. My party has said it point blank, and I've accepted it. And I find it amazing that the Liberal Party candidate suggests that their nomination process is transparent when Noor al-Qadri, a Syrian Nazi, was green-lighted by your party to become a candidate.
Okay, we'll stop there. I asked the question to Harry Splett. You get 30 seconds to wrap up on this topic. Go ahead.
Again, by the way, there's a private member's bill to try and reduce the power of the Prime Minister.
Mr. Chang, Conservative.
And Stephen Harper, a man who I voted for as leader of the combined Reform Conservative Party, is in favor of it. But meanwhile, he has that power and he's going to use it. So don't blame him.
Okay, we'll stop there. Next question will go to Jean-Luc Cooke, the Green Party candidate. We're hearing a lot of talk about jobs in this election campaign. I want to hear specifically about how each of you, but starting with you, Jean-Luc Cooke, will work to create jobs in Nepean, in your riding.
I alluded to this in my opening comments. A party platform with the Greens, not only are we going to lower small business taxes to 9%, which, by the way, all the four major parties are on side with, so the Canadian Federation of Independent Business should be quite happy with that, but also capital gains from a successful small business venture. Once you receive those profits, what I would see is the profits from those investments be tax exempt under the one condition that it gets reinvested into another small business. The goal with this is that if you are a successful small business owner, I want you to keep your skin in the game. I want you to take everything that you've learned, all the lessons, all the good and the bad, and what to avoid and what to do again, to bring it to your next small business investment. There's plenty of talent within Ottawa in the engineering and STEM disciplines to create new small businesses. To reignite high-tech here in Ottawa, it doesn't require a mountain of money with venture capitalists or with other incubator systems. What we need is the actual advisors, the people that sit on the board that invest at the early stage to be in the game and to return to the game.
Okay, it's open to everyone now on the subject of jobs.
Something close to my heart because I paid heavily just by converting money to an annuity. The government didn't balance the budget. I balanced it with what I paid in capital gains, and the idea of reinvesting it is 100%.
And I was on the board of Invest Ottawa for the last 3 years. There are 1,900 knowledge-based companies in Ottawa, and we need to promote a sector that is stable as an alternative to the largest employer, the federal government, the second biggest employer, the city of Ottawa. We need a stable sector. One of the things I think that can be done here because of the talent, because of the proximity to Washington, is to promote defense sector, electronic sector, hardware and software industries. These jobs will never get outsourced to China or India. They pay 60% more than the comparable job elsewhere. And we have got a very huge captive market in the United States. And the Canadian defense budget is much, much bigger than the oil sands budget during the next 20 years. That was when the oil prices were quite high. So within that defense budget, even if we take a small portion of 13% that is allocated to C4ISR and related things, we have got a huge market that can be created and sustained here so that our young people, they don't have to leave Ottawa in search of jobs to go to Toronto and elsewhere.
I commend Mr. Arya's aspirations to bring more jobs here to Ottawa. I also want to bring that to attention that the Liberal plan is to increase taxes, not only a payroll tax, which Justin Trudeau has signed up on with Kathleen Wynne here in Ontario, not only to increase the tax of around $1,000 in increasing not only the cost for the employer, but also for the employee. This is a job-killing tax. This will not help the Ottawa economy.
CPP? Is that the increase in CPP? Let's make a big distinction here, first of all. Let's make a big distinction.
Please.
An increase in CPP is not necessarily a tax. That's an investment in people's retirement.
It's a payroll deduction.
But let's be really clear here. Increasing in CPP is an investment in people's retirement. So one thing that I do find interesting, and actually I'm quite happy with, is that across the three major parties, and I'm sure across the board with all these gentlemen, is that there is a concentrated desire to increase employment through investment in small, medium enterprise. Across Canada, 80% of new job creation is in small to medium enterprise. The NDP also wants to reduce the tax burden on small to medium enterprises by 2%. What we also want to do is we want to put forth an innovation tax credit, where if you want to invest in new production equipment, new efficiencies, we want to reward you with that so you can reinvest that back into your market. And one thing that I find interesting is that a specific thing that we want to do, the NDP, is we want to invest in youth employment, because youth employment is a critical factor. But one distinction, although we have many similarities, a distinction between the NDP and the Liberal Party, we both recognize that taking much better care of our public service is an absolute necessity, and certainly here in Nepean. But yesterday, the NDP, we released our concrete plan for a new investment in the public sector. But after years of conservative cuts, and we know that there have been years of conservative cuts in that sector, Justin Trudeau is now promising to follow a similar strategy to balance his budget, and his plan includes new cuts to services and public sector layoffs.
Mr. Devine,
people
you're
here in Ottawa,
absolutely wrong. You're absolutely wrong. We have written an open letter to all public service unions, and our leader has written a direct letter to public service employees.
An open letter is not the same thing.
It is a pledge. Okay, we have said we have promised to bring respect back to public service.
Respect
we are
is one
going
thing.
to.
Respect
we
is one
are
thing.
going to honor the collective bargaining.
Sorry, beg your pardon.
We are going to honor the collective bargaining. The unions understand it. They are with us. The public service employees are with us. And I know many of them are working hard in my campaign to defeat the Conservative government. But I do agree with Mr. Devine on the CPP. There are 12 million Canadians, working Canadians, who don't have a workplace pension plan. And good majority of them may directly retire into poverty. Already our food banks are being overloaded by working Canadians. working Canadians during the last few years have been increasing.
Spending. We've seen enough under the Chrétien and Paul Martin era. They promised tax cuts in GST. What they brought was, during the recession, they made severe deep cuts to the public service. This hurt not only transfers to the Ontario province, but also our public service in the long run. But they make one promise, they do the other thing. For over 9 years, since our Prime Minister Harper has become Prime Minister, we have actually seen a relative growth in the public sector, especially in the federal public service between 2006 and 2015. We've also created 1.3 million net new jobs, 90% of which are full-time jobs.
I will tell you,
this is a real true record that we kept taxes low and created more jobs.
Like Jean-Luc just said, you have cherry-picked those stats. And let us not put forth, when you say don't believe, the secret myth that the Liberals are this, do not believe the conservative pretense that they are looking after the interests of all Canadians.
That's why we're lowering taxes for all Canadians. Right. We're not going to bring in a carbon job-killing tax.
Andy,
the other parties are bringing forward.
This is a federal debate on so many issues, and if you keep on saying lower taxes, this is the marketplace of ideas.
That's what I hear at the door.
This is the marketplace of ideas, and you are talking like it's a 2-for-1 special.
All the residents I talk to, they are concerned.
Do you know
about
what the residents are talking about? And I'm sure that my peers can back this up. The residents of Nepean, by and large, the #1 issue I hear in Nepean is from public servants who say
because you're not door knocking.
Okay, one at a time, please.
I am door knocking plenty, sir. I am door knocking plenty. I'm door knocking every night and every weekend. I am door knocking, and what I'm hearing is that residents of Nepean, I'm not just door knocking, I'm showing up at public debate, sir.
I've done the same. Every day since the campaign started until now, I've attended 100% of the public debates that's held in this
Up until now, what about the future? What about the next 3 debates? You're not going to go to them. Public sector
the other
workers
parties
are saying,
want to tell you what the future looks like. Let me tell you, high taxes, high debt, high job-killing taxes will bring devastation to our economy.
We only have a bit of time left. Excuse me, everyone. We only have a bit of time left, so I'm going to give some time to you, Jesus.
Okay, thank you. At the onset of this discussion, I was happy because I thought like everybody had a common agreement. There was some points of agreement, but it blew up. I also door knock. And what do I hear from our constituents? Enough of partisan politics. Let's work together. Enough of partisan politics. Let's pick out whatever good items that we have and put them together. That's it. Thank you.
Okay, let's stop there, and we'll give the final 30 seconds to Jean-Luc Cooke. I asked you the question originally, so you can wrap up.
Certainly, thanks. I find it shocking that the Conservatives seem to think that the Canada Pension Plan deductions at source is a tax. If you can't tell the difference between a deduction at source and a tax, you are not competent to pass laws in this country on taxation, point blank. Secondly, the defense sector. I think that's a very interesting idea for Ottawa to grow as a third pillar of industry. I question because the Liberals' policy on shipping the small armored vehicles to Saudi Arabia and your own history in defense and traveling abroad. Okay. I would like to know more about your history, Mr. Arya.
All right, we'll have to stop there. Let's move on to the next question, which I'll direct to the NDP candidate, Sean Devine. Let's talk about health care. We have heard a little bit about it on the campaign, but perhaps not enough, given that it's the #1 issue that a lot of voters identify when they're asked by pollsters what their priorities are. So how do we make health care sustainable, and what role does the federal government play in that? I think a lot of people feel that it can't be just about throwing more money at the challenges that we have. So how do we make healthcare sustainable, and how can the federal government play a leadership role in that?
Well, I do agree that it is a pivotal issue. And it's not just a pivotal issue for seniors. It's not just a pivotal issue for new Canadians. It's a pivotal issue for every Canadian. I'm very proud that I live in a country where I only need a Medicare card to see a physician. I don't need a credit card. And currently in Canada, 5 million Canadians cannot see a physician, and that's something that we must redress. And Mark, when you say, can we talk about it without talking about, throwing money at it? But what we have to do is we have to stop slashing money from it. The Conservative government has slashed and burned healthcare. Now, Andy, Mr. Wang, is going to refer to a lot of government programs as handouts. And personally, I find that term offensive. To consider these essential, valuable services as handouts, I find that deplorable. This is something that all Canadians need. And let me remind you that in the 1960s, Tommy Douglas brought forth Medicare, the most cherished, one of the most valuable, the riskiest and boldest social programs we've ever had, and he did this without balancing the budget.
It's open to everyone now.
And he did this and balanced the budget. I'm sorry.
In Ottawa, 2.5% of the patients, 2.5.
I would like to address Sean's comment in his introduction. Let me be clear. Our government has made record number of investments for healthcare because it is an essential part of our, not only our Canadian identity, but also is part of what makes our country strong. And that's why our government, right here in Ontario, since 2006, has doubled the amount of health and social transfers from $10 to $20.3 billion. These are real numbers. We've not raised taxes. We've not raised taxes to pay for these transfers. However, it's the wasteful spending of the Liberal Kathleen Wynne government that's wasting away all this money they're getting from taxpayers. We need to make sure that we are focused on fiscal management and fiscal responsibility on Parliament Hill. That's what I'll fight for.
We don't have a healthcare system in Canada. We got a sickness care system, and it's unsustainable. A panel of expert medical people proposed recently that we've got to get at the front end of it to prevent sickness to begin with. And a large part of that can be done with a good program. We cannot sustain the present thing. It's unsustainable.
That speaks exactly to what you said about... Sorry, Chandra, I jumped in there.
Chandra's been trying to get in for some time.
In Ottawa region, 2.5% of the patient account close to 33% of the entire healthcare budget. And out of the 2.5%, more than 50% are seniors. We have to think outside the box. The Canadian Medical Association has proposed a plan wherein they said savings of $2.3 billion can be achieved by implementing a senior-focused plan. We have to think outside the box. It is not just spending more money, it is how smart we spend that money.
All right, so outside of the box, the Green Party for over 6 years now has had a policy that has been adopted by the provinces and ignored by the Conservatives, and hopefully the other parties will pick it up soon. A national pharmacare plan. Bulk purchasing of pharmaceuticals, which are extremely expensive, often thousands of dollars a shot, be bought at bulk at the national level and then redistributed to the provinces will save us $7.2 billion per year.
Well, when you say that you hope the other parties pick it up soon, the NDP has already picked up national pharmacare.
Excellent.
And this is another example. I'm going to do something rare in a debate. I'm going to commend something that my rival Jean-Luc Cooke said in another debate. Mark, you're asking about ways that we can make healthcare sustainable without just throwing money at it. At another event that I was at, I heard Mr. Jean-Luc Cooke, when speaking about how do we take better care of our seniors, he said something that I was really moved by. He was talking about how do we take care of our elderly Canadians? How do we take care of our parents who are in that transitional period? Do you mind if I quote you here?
Go, please.
Who are in that transitional period between living in their own homes and living in palliative care. And what Jean-Luc Cooke said, and I know that this is something that I would endorse as well, is that why can't Canada have a preventative way of looking at medicine? Why can't Canada have, if you want to talk about a tax credit that I can get behind, forget the home renovation tax credit.
There is actually
talk about a tax credit. I'm almost done. Good. Let's talk about a tax credit where we can, reward Canadians, such as myself, at my age bracket, who have to take care of their parents in their own homes.
We have a caregiver tax credit that's in place right now. We also are introducing a single senior tax credit that is on par with what seniors can get in terms of pension splitting.
Even over-the-counter drugs are causing
I want to
deaths.
hear why Jean-Luc said that the Conservatives' tax care credit is a joke, because I'm likely to agree.
Well, let me tell you what's not a joke. The Liberal government record of the previous decade, in the 90s, John Chrétien and Paul Martin made 30% cuts to health transfers. Our government, for entirety of our country, has increased health transfers by 70%. These are real numbers. These are real dollars that we are giving to our healthcare providers on every provincial level.
The Liberal Party is committed to invest $20 billion in the social infrastructure, which includes senior care facilities, the child care facilities, and the affordable housing.
Our plan is
investment in affordable housing, every dollar invested in affordable housing will dramatically reduce the other social costs, including healthcare costs. And the seniors issue has to be addressed. Today's report says that the number of seniors in this country is more than the number of people under the age of 15. Which
it's a demographic bomb, for sure.
It is, it is.
Yeah, and we have to address it.
Perhaps Mr. Wang can talk about the program to close down veterans' offices.
Well, look,
perhaps, look, you've been barking enough. Perhaps he can talk about the increase in the number of soldiers suffering from post-traumatic stress. This is just one example The reason we have all the phenomena, all these facts, is because healthcare is not a right. The issue is not simply the cut and slash. The issue is that healthcare is becoming a matter for the privileged. And the rest have to line up, wait 3 to 6 months for an appointment to see a surgeon, all right? I'm quite confident that the people involved in healthcare know what the problems are. Know that you don't have to be your own advocate in order to receive proper healthcare, which is the case today.
Thank you, sir. I just want to address the issue you raised about our stance on veterans.
Organize.
He wants to read from his binder. Please let him read from his binder.
I just want to let you know, throughout our history, our Canadian Armed Forces has represented and defended and served our country with distinction. So I want to take this opportunity to thank all the men and women who serve in the armed forces. I'm proud of the fact that our government has put in more than $4.7 billion in new funding for our veterans. This is an important part of our government, and we have done so without raising taxes.
You know, I was at a door yesterday.
Okay.
Speaking of knocking doors,
so I'm just in, well, there's no time left, but you get the final 30 seconds on this anyway.
Point of order, Mr. Chairman. Can we have some heat in this place?
We've got a lot
Can't
of
do
heat in
anything
this
about
place.
that. Go ahead, 30 seconds.
Right now. Andy, there is a very, very well-known video going around of Minister of Veteran Affairs Julian Fantino deliberately ignoring a group of veterans in his office. That video is sad and tragic.
We have a new Minister of Veteran
Affairs. Because you had to turf the other one.
This time belongs to Sean Devine.
Thank you very much. That one had to be turfed, and there's plenty of others that have been turfed or who have self-turfed themselves. But there was also the issue, talking about door knocking. I knock on a lot of doors, sir. And I was at a door yesterday in Chapman Mills, right here nearby in Nepean, and I met a member of the military, of the Canadian Forces. I met a frontline soldier who said to me in hushed tones, because far too many public servants are talking in hushed tones, he said no member of his forces will vote for the Conservatives.
We'll stop there, and we'll move on to the next question, which I'll direct to Andy Wang, the Conservative candidate. There are a lot of public servants in Nepean. You've already heard the accusation in our debate tonight that many of them are not happy with your government. The Conservatives have recently cut the size of the public service. The unions are concerned about benefits like sick leave being trimmed back. And there is also the concern in the scientific community and in other parts of the federal public service that research is not a priority and that scientists are being muzzled. That's the expression that we hear used a lot. So has your government been bad for public servants in the National Capital Region?
Well, let me start. Thank you, Mark, for that question. Let me start by saying that Canada has the best public servants in the world. The value for public service is this. We serve Canadians. We don't serve a union boss. We don't serve a political party. We serve Canadians. This has to be the fundamental value of our public service. And that's what makes our country strong. And we know that public service jobs are only sustainable if they're affordable to taxpayers. And that's why our government is very proud of the fact that we've been growing the economy while reducing taxation at the same time. Our government has balanced the budget without the massive layoffs that we've seen the previous Liberal government back in the 1990s. And we will keep public service affordable and high quality for all Canadians, because our government wants to provide the best value to taxpayers. And plunging Canada deep into debt to fund more bureaucracies right now is not the best way to build Ottawa's economy. We need to focus on reduction of red tape, reducing taxes to help our entrepreneurs, small businesses, open more doors for more job opportunity. Thank you.
Okay, it's open to everyone now.
I agree with you that public servants serve Canadians. And if that is the case, then I was quite confused, as many public servants were confused, when a few years ago, all of a sudden we started getting letters from the Canadian government, and rather than saying Canadian government at the bottom, it said the Harper government. That's when all of a sudden public servants were under the whip of directly serving the Prime Minister. And that's a culture that has permeated the entire public service. I am not kidding when I say that at every door I knock, when I encounter a public service, there's a snowball's chance in hell that any one of them is going to be, actively supporting the Conservative Party.
When I knock on the doors in Nepean, I've knocked on thousands and thousands of doors. There are only two themes there. One is a very clear anti-conservative sentiment. And number two, the anger of the public service employees is quite visible.
It's not just anger.
Maybe you're just knocking on doors of Liberal members. Maybe you're just knocking on
When you knock on doors,
of
it's a random selection.
We know the public service employees are so angry. The unions have determined
so many
to
great people residents here in
adopt
Nepean.
Nepean as one of the ridings
to
the to defeat one of the 3 ridings in Ottawa to defeat the Conservatives. And I know many of my personal friends are public service employees. They're all highly qualified. They work very hard. They're all demoralized. We want to bring respect back. We want to honor the collective back. We want to unmuzzle the scientists here. We want to
public services
bring long form.
That they want to defeat a government that we want to continue with our low tax plan to provide more job opportunities.
You know why it's alarming? It's alarming to hear that because that's the situation and the culture that the Conservative government has created. We're talking about how the fact that public servants are angry. Yes, they are angry. They are demoralized. Yes, they're demoralized. But the thing that gets to me the most, in a country, in a democracy as Canada, these public servants are not just angry and demoralized, they're afraid. They're scared. They are intimidated. You try. I commend you on that.
Go ahead.
I'm a federal employee. I try not to be demoralized.
Great.
Well, then you've got a lot of courage. But
no, I said I try to be not to be demoralized. But when I made my statement in the earlier, my opening statement is the negatives impressed on us. I still remember a news clip with a minister saying how bad the federal employees are about their sick leave. They're spoiled. Again, I wouldn't name Mr. Wang who that minister is, but I guess you know who that is.
I worked for public service myself back in 2007 for the Canadian Border Services Agency. I can tell you, my principle as a public servant is to serve and to protect Canada and Canadians.
We're not talking about you, Mr. Wang.
This is the value that our public service needs to continue to promote.
Okay.
Our public service simply cannot just politicize everything. We need to focus on serving Canadians.
They're not.
And how do we serve them?
Andy Wang, I'm going to stop you just because you get the final 30 seconds on this anyway. So go ahead, Jean-Luc Cooke.
In 2011, I was at a public debate held by PIPS and PSAC, chaired by the wonderful Don Newman. And every single party representative was there, including Pierre Poilievre, Andy Wang's former boss. And when asked this specific question, the same one we're asking right now, he put on his best Cheshire Cat grin, looked straight into the crowd and said, the public service is very important to us. And his own supporters laughed at it because they knew it was a lie, and this lie is being repeated again 4 years later. Do not elect this man if you are a public servant.
Okay, final 30 seconds on this to Andy Wang. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mark. Public servants are very important, not only to Nepean, but to Ontario, to Canada, to our Canadian government, because we are serving Canadians. Let me reassure you, what you have seen in the Liberal era back in the 90s will simply not be repeated. What they have done is cut public service with deep cuts, not raising, they're raising taxes, spending wildly. That's what we'll get if we elect a Liberal Justin Trudeau government. Be assured, my friends, we are not raising taxes. We're lowering taxes, creating more job opportunities.
We'll stop there, and we'll move right to the closing statements. Once again, each candidate gets 1 minute, and we'll do them in the reverse order of the opening statements. So we'll begin with independent candidate Jesus Cosico. Go ahead.
Okay. Anyway, like most of us, I'm concerned there has been too much partisan politics, creating a barrier to real dialogue among the issues and concerns us, and real change that will benefit ordinary Canadians. You've seen it happen just right now. Many of our citizens have become indifferent and uninvolved. I will be the voice of the youth, and to them I say, get involved and vote. It's your future. As an advocate of pro-life, I will make my business to voice out and fight for the rights of the unborn. I will be the voice of the sick and the elderly, to improve and sustain proper and affordable care. I would like to see our society that is responsible, progressive, vibrant, and secured, encourages discussion and understanding, respects life, and has strong family and moral values. Join me in this journey of 1,000 miles by taking the first step.
Next up is the Marxist-Leninist candidate, Tony Seat. Go ahead, you have 1 minute.
Well, we have seen in this actual debate here where the questions have been restricted to the so-called major parties, how the elections in Canada are organized, and the voices of Canadians are marginalized. This is what is called a free-for-all. The issue is for Canadians, working Canadians, not only in Nepean but throughout Canada, to raise their voice, to affirm their rights, their just concerns, and to vote for democratic renewal. This can be done by voting Marxist-Leninist, and if you wish to study our, see our candidates, our program, visit mlpc.ca. Finally, I want to say one thing on terms of anti-war government. Canada is very much involved inside Syria, in the intervention in Syria, as well as Ukraine, as well as intrigues in terms of Venezuela.
That's time. Thank you.
This must be ended.
Next up is the Conservative candidate, Andy Wang. Go ahead.
Thank you. Every resident of Nepean should have their opportunity to pursue their own goals, to raise their families how they see fit, not how government sees fit. We need a government that will help residents of Nepean overcome obstacles, not one that creates obstacles with more taxes, more debt, and more red tape. A government that won't raise taxes on families, seniors, and small businesses. The Liberals and the NDP want to raise taxes and create more debt and run deficits. Residents of Nepean know that deficits today mean higher taxes tomorrow. When the global economy is fragile, you don't go around punishing job creators with more taxes. That is why the conservative approach is different, why my approach is different. We need a plan that works for Nepean by keeping taxes low, which will create more jobs. I'm committed to serving Nepean and building our community as the next Member of Parliament. So on October 19th, vote for Andy Wang, a strong voice for Nepean. Thank you.
Thank you. Sean Devine, the NDP candidate.
Thank you. I think what we've seen here today and what we're seeing across the country is that Canadians want change. Canada needs change. But that change is not going to come without opposition, and that change is not going to come overnight. That change is going to take vision and strength and leadership. And even here in this riding, for that change to happen, it's going to require someone who has the strength of character to build and maintain consensus. That change is going to require someone who can be compassionate to opposing views, but who can stand up for what he believes in. That change is going to require someone who has the courage to be an independent thinker and not just follow marching orders. That change is going to require someone that you can trust, even if we don't agree with each other. I'm confident that I can be the person to represent that change here in Nepean. Thank you very much.
Okay, next up is the Green Party candidate, Jean-Luc Cooke. Go ahead.
Thank you. I'm proud to represent a party that is giving me the latitude to be the best candidate for Nepean. I can abandon certain party policies if it's in the best interest of Nepean, and I have my party's leadership behind me on that decision. Also, as a small business owner, several of them actually, and an engineer and someone with a technical mind, I think I best match this riding who has a history of being public service experts, being statisticians, economists, engineers, programmers, small business owners. I am right in the wheelhouse of Nepean. Thirdly, I suppose, the policies right now in the last several years based on suppressing the experts within our public service is deplorable. It needs to stop. We need to let the experts that we are paying for with our tax dollars to be allowed to speak so that we can be better educated on the issues. On October 19th, I ask you to vote for the future, to vote for the next election and this one. Vote Green. It'll be a better country with us.
Thank you. Harry Splett, independent candidate.
I agree there's need for a change, but make it a good one. Vote for Harry Splett and get at the debt. $26 billion is going to interest every year. Achieves nothing but line the banks who own most of the debt. They own 80% of it. It was created through the banks. It can be taken down again through the banking system and the Bank of Canada. Until you do that, all your promises are for naught. End of story.
Okay, thank you. Chandra Arya, the Liberal candidate.
This election is about future. It's the future of our families. I know how important it is for our young people that we attract high-quality, high-paying jobs in Ottawa. I have got the background. I got the background of a businessman, a community activist, and I have worked on the boards like Invest Ottawa and the Affordable Housing Corporation. I know that I should work with all levels of the government, the federal level, the provincial, and the city, plus importantly, with the private sector, to create high-quality, sustainable jobs in Ottawa. The Liberal Party has got a strong team that is ready and a plan to deliver real change. On October 19th, I hope you join me to make Nepean and Canada stronger. Thank you.
All right, thank you, and thank you to all the candidates for participating in the debate. That's it for our debate in the riding of Nepean. Thank you for watching. We'll see you next time on the local campaign.